Just as a disclaimer, we want you to know that some of the movies that we will be reviewing were shot in a different time and era where people of race and sex were not treated equally. We understand this and hope you do too. The movies or anything that happened on the sets are not the views of this podcast or what this show is intended to be all about.
Exactly. And we want to give due diligence in presenting the movie and not the views of the cast or directors or anyone involved. But we also feel it's necessary to let the audience know some of the background information to get a feel for what was happening at the time of shooting the film. Again, we hope you understand that we do not agree with everything that went on, and we just want to give out the information. And with that being said, hope you enjoy the show.
Everyone in the theater hold on firmly to his seat, please. Stop it! Stop it! I'm Vincent Price. What unearthly horror did that girl gaze upon? What manner of incredible thing walked beneath that hood? It would be unfair at this time to show you any more of what went on in that laboratory where a man actually dared to play God. So fantastic words can't begin to describe it. You must see it with your own eyes to believe it. When the fly comes your way.
It isn't like any other fly I've ever seen.
No! 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 Please let me look at the fly. I've killed Andre. Please help me. Call the police and...
The charge can only be murder.
There were no mistresses. I had no lovers.
Why did you kill him?
God, don't let it get out.
Inspector, it's in the garden. Come quickly.
As God is my witness, I saw the thing. It's unbelievable. I shall never forget that scream as long as I live.
Flies on its way. Watch out for it. It's far beyond anything your mind could ever conceive.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tragia Cinema podcast. I'm your host, Jimbo, and I'm joined again by my two co-hosts,
Terence
and Kyle.
Today will be episode number 54, where we'll be discussing a very good movie. Surprisingly, I was really shocked. This is my first time seeing it. I don't know about Terence and Kyle, but...
First time seeing this version.
This version. I mean, I've seen the Jeff Goldblum version, but this version was amazing. And It is, of course, The Fly. So before we dive into it, I'm going to throw the gentleman a question. Start with Kyle.
Yeah,
so
it
takes Terrence's mind a lot longer to process information.
And I talk a mile a minute, so
instead of him just
good.
going, what was the question?
Yeah.
Hey, a lot of
Schindler's
them
List?
a lot of them are favorites. And
Who are you people and where's my horse?
So, so the question is this. Kyle, we'll start with you. Mm-hmm. If you were basically faced with a predicament like this movie, if you got transformed into something else, an insect-wise, what would you be?
I love when these questions are like not pre-recorded or like not pre-planned or anything like that.
Right.
You know, we just
now you know how Terence feels all the time.
Exactly. in general, like I would hope I might feel like a beetle. You know, they're armored, they can survive anything.
Sting beetle.
Yeah, sting beetle or something like that. Have a giant horn in my head. It'd be cool. I think that'd be cool.
Or a ladybug, like, no, what was it? Bug's Life?
Ladybug, yeah.
You remember that in Bug's
That'd be
Life?
a classic. That'd be so good. Oh, that
Anything with a nice chitinous shell.
I might have to.
Terrence?
Put me in the compressor, please.
What insects you would be, not if you would kill yourself. We all know the answer to that.
He said, how would you react? It's how it would react. Put me in the compressor. And I'd probably be something I don't like at all, because I would like to be like, oh, praying mantises are
That's
cool.
why I said the praying
Sort of
mantises
like
is what I would
dragonflies are
choose.
pretty cool, but like my luck would be like a freaking spider, and I hate spiders. Or it'd be like something I just absolutely
It'd be a
detest.
flea.
like a centipede.
Just so the
All the legs.
All the legs.
Just so the audience can picture Terrence as a tarantula head, with just his head with like 8 legs sticking out of his head, walking around.
The furry head.
Like
that's
the old
thing that bothers me the
head
most.
detective
Yeah.
from In Living
Put me in the
Color.
compressor, please.
But you wouldn't have rum and milk every night. Wait, I can already do that. I'm an adult.
So yeah, I'd probably go with the praying mantis. I just think that would be cool. So as you can tell, we've already started
for
gelling as the 3-man group, and it just gets better and better. So we're glad to have Kyle on board now. So
Glad to be here.
Terrence, let's take it away. The Fly.
Yes, almost forgot I had to do this. The Fly release date, July
they happen.
16th, 1958. We're doing a podcast, guys.
What? Well, it's about time you showed up, Terrence.
The budget, it was around $400,000. So if you account for inflation, that's $3.6 million. Pretty low budget movie.
Yeah, but that's kind of restrained. Like, there's only a few different like sets or something like that, like at the house, and
Yeah,
the
so
factory,
there's
The
only-
laboratory.
Yeah,
There's a limited amount of sets. There's only a handful of actors. There's only a handful of people that you're using for talent. On top of, there's only a couple scenes that are using some of the practical effects. Other than that, bravo on them getting away with not spending that much. Box office, they made $3 million. So they made it back. Like this movie did well.
Very good.
And if you account for inflation, that's $27.3 million today. And if we're looking at the box office, once again, didn't see it on the top, but the top 4 for the box office in 1958, we see at number 1 South Pacific, at number 2 Auntie Mame, number 3 Cat on the Hot Tin Roof, and number 4 No Time for Sergeants. I'm not familiar with any of those movies.
Well, you will be, because we're going to be covering some of them here.
Repeat that first one again. I can't remember what the first one was.
Auntie Mame.
No, that was
it
the
was
second one.
the Pacific something.
South Pacific.
South Pacific. That's got to be like a World War II movie. It got to be right.
That's what I was
don't you
thinking
think?
when it came.
Surely,
when I read
someone's
it.
got to be on a boat and they got to fly a plane off the boat.
I don't know, but don't call me Shirley.
And, yeah, exactly. I just got fascinated with that name. It's like, well, it's obviously you say Pacific in a name, you're going to war.
So this was directed by Kirk Newman, who also directed Godzilla, the Eurotrash version, and
The best version.
a slew of Tarzan movies in the 40s. Like there was at least 5 or 6 Tarzan movies that he directed that came out in the 40s. Writing credits goes to James Cavell, who wrote the screenplay. He also wrote 2 other movies, which I'm not familiar with. I didn't really see any movies that stuck out that might have been popular I knew, so just 2 random ones. He also helped write The Great Escape and Shogun. Then the story was based on a book that George Liglin wrote, and I probably butchered that name. I got a little, couple fun tips that happened during the shooting. So the shoot only lasted 18 days. This was a very quick film. As far as shooting goes, and probably most of it was majority of the production of this film was post-production. And the photographic effects were handled by Ellen B. Abbott, with makeup by Ben Nye.
Is that Ben Nye the Science Guy?
Not to be confused with Bill Nye.
My cousin Gary Nye, the food truck guy.
So this was photographed in 20th century Fox's trademark CinemaScope with Colored by Deluxe. This is a $28,000 laboratory set that was constructed from Army surplus equipment. So they went to Army surplus and went, "What's your most expensive thing? We'll take it." All right. Now for my favorite part, the awards. There's only one, and they didn't win anything. They were only nominated. They were nominated. Oh, this is the Hugo Awards, 1959, where they were only nominated for Best Dramatic Presentation. And now we have the synopsis.
Synopsis. Give it to me, Terence. I want to know it.
A scientist who is working on a teleportation device suffers a horrible accident that transports his head and arm to that of a fly, and the fly's head and arm to his body.
Yeah, I guess when you watch the film, it really is only his head and arm, but they never talk about anything else in his body. Like, it's just like, is his neck okay?
Well, it's because if you remember, the fly had a white head and a white arm, and then if you remember the transformation on the actual guy, it was his left arm, or
it was left arm, which he had shoved in his jacket the whole time, and then he got the cloak over his head with this fly mouth. I wonder how they did that little. I think we'll get to it later, possibly in the trivia facts or something like that. But how they did the camera effects for the girl's face when she reacts to seeing Flyman's head.
I know, right?
We'll have to get to that later. I'm sure there's something about it. But anyways, moving on to the cast. I believe that's the next session we go through, right? Yes, it is.
Welcome
all right.
to the club.
I am so good and so professional. I know what I'm doing before they do. First time for everything. All right.
Typically, that's not unusual.
I'm asleep by this time. Let's go.
Yeah, you're asleep all the time. All right, so beginning of task, we have David Hiddison as Andre Delambro, Dealambre. So I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce that right. Andre Delambre or something like that. But anyways, that's played by David Henson, who also happened to be a star of movies such as Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and the James Bond film License to Kill. So great cast there. Patricia Owens as Helene. She happened to also star in movies like Trouble in Paradise and wrong movie. Patricia Owens happened to star as in The Law in Jake Wade and the movie Hell to Eternity. I've never heard of those movies, but hopefully they're good. Then we have my personal favorite, Vincent Price, playing Francis Delambre. And he starred in movies like The House of Wax and The House of Horrors and all other kind of like...
House on Haunted Hill.
A horror movie icon who I love dearly. Great actor. Love him to death. He's great.
What was your guys' first Vincent Price movie?
I believe mine was The Pit and the Pendulum, maybe?
Okay, that's a good one.
I'd say that House of Wax probably.
Mine was House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah, that too. It's one of the two.
Yeah. That's everyone gets their start.
The Raven. We could go on and on.
Yeah, I want to say he's in like dozens of movies and just a fantastic actor. Yeah,
that's all I knew it was
Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Michael Jackson's Thriller. Yeah. And moving on, we have Herbert Marshall, who plays Investigator Charis. And Herbert Marshall also happened to star in movies like Trouble in Paradise, which I originally said Patricia did, but I know it's Trouble in Paradise. That's what Herbert Marshall was in. Had starred in Trouble in Paradise and also the movie The Little Foxes. Yeah. Then moving on again, we have Kathleen Freeman, who might have my favorite role in the film as the nurse, basically named Emma, or not nurse, the maid,
right?
Who is absolutely perplexed that anything could be unusual in the world ever. Love her to death. She's a great character. I would hate her in real life, but I love her in this movie.
Right.
And Kathleen Freeman is a great actor, great character actor who you see in a lot of films but never remember it in a fun way. But she happened to also be like movies like The Blues Brothers and the original Nutty Professor and a bunch of other stuff that just is great stuff. Everyone a fun time, look up Kathleen Freeman and realize she's been in everything you ever loved in your entire childhood.
But never knew who she was.
And anyways, that kind of like rounds out the majority of the cast. Then we gotta go on to like some of the ancillary characters like Betty Lou Gerson, who played the Nurse Anderson, who didn't have any speaking roles, but just kind of like was around there in the plot. And then we had like Charles Herbert, who who played Philippe, who was the fly man. So Charles Herbert also happened to star in movies like The 13 Ghosts and The Boy and the Pirates. Well, not Charles Herbert was the kid. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was
like,
like, you lost me there for a second.
I'm a professional who does movie stuffs, and
But I don't know, that's pretty cool. I didn't know he continued to act and then went into 13 Ghosts. Unless 13 Ghosts is a remake.
The new 13 Ghosts is a remake.
I want to say
he would have been about 70 by the time that came out.
That happens all the time.
Unfortunately, he would have been. Well, actually, he was on. Just a fun fact about Charles Herbert here. He was born in December of 1948 and lived till 2015, age of 66. So
he could have been in the movie.
Yeah, he could have been in the movie, but he wasn't. But no, he was in the original 13 Ghosts and Houseboat too, and Twilight Zone episodes and Nutty Professor, like I said. So he had a really nice career for a good lifespan there. So good guy.
So, are you done with the cast?
I am done with the cast. Take it away.
Let's go ahead and talk about this movie because this, since all of us, this is the first time we ever saw this movie because we've all seen the newer remake.
Yeah.
Very interesting movie. You start off with like the janitor guy closing up or opening the shop, and you see this lady at this press, and she just sees him and starts running away. He's like, ma'am, and he goes over there and he discovers this grimy, bloody press that's smashed a human to smithereens, pretty much.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is going on? So he calls the cops, and then you enter Vincent Price, But one thing about this movie, if you notice, that all the lead actors have like a foreign name, like Philippe or Francois or Andre. I don't know if it was set in France.
French
right?
Inspired, at least a lot of the names were, because even like down to like one of his workers, where the like one of the first lines in the movie is this cat is coming by. And he's like, "Oh, come here, monkey!"
Right? Yeah. So I think it was set somewhere over there. It kind of sounds like it.
Implied everyone's speaking English, but in France, just
exactly.
Right. Yeah, which would explain some of the more peculiar aspects of the film, particularly like how the law handles the situation of finding a body. And
then the guy calls he calls Vincent Price. I can't remember his.
The factory worker calls it to Price and informs him of finding the body.
He's like, he calls in. He's like, give me Inspector Charisse or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the guy's having dinner, right? And he's like, sir, the phone for you. And he's like, Inspector, there's been an accident, blah, blah, blah. I need you.
He's playing a chess game at a club.
And he's like, okay. He's like,
in the middle of the night, as you do.
Yeah. He's like, well, we'll have to put this on hold. I've got to go. So right away, you come to find out that she admits she killed him. Yeah. And then she just goes home.
Yeah,
and so they're coming over there. The inspector comes over. The doctor's there, and you're thinking, this lady just killed this guy.
Yeah,
and you don't know what's going on. But he's like, well, they go. Does Vincent Price, the inspector, go back to the crime scene first? And they're like, the press is at two.
Yes.
What do you call it? Two road.
Vincent Price's character explains how the machine works, and he actually had to operate the machine because no one there knew how, of course, because it's his factory. So he's like, I know this is your brother and this is a terrible situation, but are you okay to operate? And he's like, I can do it. So he operates the machine, and then he explains. He's like, wait a minute, this thing's been set. For zero
level.
So like we would never have it set there because there'd be nothing left with
you would just create a flat plane. That's
exactly.
all
you And so and then he explains it was used twice. To which it then further goes on to afterwards where not really an interrogation. It's more like they just sit her down and talk to her.
Right, and it's really
a lot more investigatory. Yeah, but it's very weird how the police, the inspector, and then the murdered husband's brother have a very unemotional reaction to it, of just like they are shocked, but they're not angry. They are just trying to get a grasp situation and trying to ask questions, but they're not trying to accuse her or get mad at her for murdering the man who she openly admits to.
I think the biggest thing, and they definitely hammer it home because they mention it over and over, is no one could believe that she did it because everybody knows her on like a very personal level, and they're like, her, she would never do that. They were in love.
Well, it's like even the doctor says, "Look, I brought her into this world." Yeah. He's like, "I've known her literally her entire life." You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, she would never do anything like that. So she starts breaking down a little bit. Like I did it, and he's like, "Well, we know you couldn't have done. How'd you do this?" She's like, "I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that." So she's not being totally honest with him about everything about the situation.
Yeah.
But you're like, well, something must have been going on. So basically, to move the story on a little bit, she basically confides in Vincent Price. She's like, look, he's like, will you tell me? He's like, because, well, we got to talk about the fly first. The little boy comes in with this fly. He's like, Mom, I caught a fly, and he's like, it's really cool. He's got like a matchbox. He's like, it's got a white head and a white arm.
Weird white leg.
Yeah. That
that's
pops
the
up
cat.
like a bunch later. But I think one interesting thing to note that happens in this particular part of the movie is she fumbles some of her own information, which I thought would come into a bigger play later, but it actually that's how it was. She just forgot. But she mentions that she hit the press once, and then that was it. And then he's like, but the machine was used twice. And she's like, she pauses for a moment, and she's like, yeah, that's right. I did use it twice.
But see, I didn't know if it was one of those automatic machines where you just hit the button once, and it goes up, comes down, and then goes up and comes down again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Me and Kyle's worked in manufacturing where stuff like that happens, where you can hit one button, and it just goes up and down twice.
Well, this show is
because it had the two. Because it had the two.
She clearly does press it twice.
Right. I mean, we saw that eventually.
Yeah. But in the initial explanation is a little bit confusing and perplexing because you don't understand how the machine operates in the film, and
that too.
Me and Jimbo are specifically a little bit more of a mechanical nuts of like, we got to figure out how this works before we even finish the movie. So we're like, wait a minute, lady, you aren't using the F.
So she pressed the bat button.
Do you even have an operator's license, ma'am? Let me call your rep.
Right. So on your iOS sheet.
Exactly.
The biggest thing that I thought was interesting and turned out to be a letdown later is I thought that would come into play later, like maybe there was something else or somebody else was involved, but it turns out no, she really did actually just press
I thought that was going to clear right there.
I thought so too, because
I
I thought that would sort of raise some red flags on the detective, being like, she doesn't have her story straight, and it kind of sounds like she's just reciting information
or trying to cover up her own husband's suicide or some degree or something.
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Or just like, it's clearly leaving details out to her own admission that she's she won't disclose this information. So they hold back on like arresting her initially and all those kind of things until they sort out what happened, because it's so unbelievable to these people that she actually murdered him, and they have enough kind of high connections that they can kind of hold off on actually trying to take action against her, basically.
Exactly.
Right, but then you see, then you see where she's like,
also withholding information.
But she's like,
where she overreacts to the fly.
The lady's like, there's a fly in here, and she goes, no, kill fly, I gotta see the fly.
She's finally getting better.
She goes over there and runs,
and then freaks
yeah.
out
So
about the fly.
she's like, you need to get in bed. They put her in bed, and the doctor, and then the nurse is up there with her. And she's like, oh, these pesky, brings her breakfast in bed. And she said, hey, is the inspector coming back again? I don't know.
Yeah.
And you just need rest or whatever. And then that fly is in there, and she's looking at it. And then that lady's, goes to swat it or whatever. It gets the current.
Yeah.
She throws her, like, breakfast tray everywhere. And she's
has a total hysteric moment of just complete...
You're like, what
lunacy.
is going on? Something's went on, but you don't know what has went on.
Yeah.
So by this time, Vincent Price is getting really worried because you come to find out that Vincent Price actually loved her. So you have this whole other backstory going on too. So that I thought it would play in more than what it did, but it didn't end up doing it. So
I always forget there was a time where like not being married at a certain age was just like really alarming, because that was what they were like. So you're however old he was, and you're not married. Like, why is that? And he's like, oh, I just really love my job. And then that's when the detective was like, you love her, don't you? And then,
he's like, yeah.
Yeah, and like, which I think is interesting throughout the whole film. It shows that, he's a competent detective. So it's interesting that some of the other details didn't sort of like raise some red flags for him.
But what I also thought was interesting is when the detective comes over, or the whatever he is, I'll call him a detective, and he's like, show me the laboratory. So they go downstairs and they see the laboratory, and it's been souped up, like high-tech stuff. And Vincent Price is like, I can't believe it. Look at all this stuff. He's like, and that's when he asks, he's like, did he ever work with any animals? And you're like, which we'll talk about animals here in a little bit.
Yeah.
R.I.P. But you're like, he's like, no, he wouldn't do anything. He wouldn't even hurt a fly. And I thought that was a really catchy phrase.
Really,
I mean?
on the nose of just...
Right.
Really on the nose.
So
why he wouldn't hurt a fly.
Basically, from here on out, Vincent Price goes to see her. He says, look, he's like, hey, I caught that fly, the one that has the white head and white arm. He's like, I got it. He's like, I actually got it down in my office. She's like, you got it, really? And he's like, yeah. He's like, but I'm not going to show you until you tell me what happened. He's like, because you're not being honest with us.
Yeah.
So this is where we go into. She's like, okay. She's like, and it goes into like a do 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 do. Back in time.
Yeah.
So,
but it really is kind of interesting because it is kind of like it's a great way of kind of dissipating the horror of a little bit of not having like an active, like the situation of the Fly Man, which hasn't really been fully disclosed yet in the story, is still something that's like, it's not going to be something that actively horrifies you because since it's being told in a flashback, things work out to be, like she's alive and you're just trying to get to the bottom of why this man has been crushed in a press.
Trying to solve the mystery.
So that also kind of like, it keeps it as a detective kind of whodunit film and less of a horror film of a monster, which it is kind of a little bit of both, but it's still.
Because I know you were a little squeamish at first. She was like, I don't know if I can do this movie. When
well, actually, that was one of the biggest things when you guys had mentioned like, hey, we're going to do The Fly. So I started watching it and I had the other movie in mind, which is like very body horror.
Yeah.
And then so I was, exactly. So I was like, man, I wonder like what's the original like? And I like this a lot better. Little spoiler there, but No, like, I do like that they were able to tell this story, and, obviously the fact of having a fly for a head is, a bit of body horror itself.
Disturbing in its own way,
Disturbing in its own way, but I
what do you mean?
Just
we haven't got there yet.
the story that's told, it does it in a very, like, interesting, interactive, like you were saying, it's very more like whodunit, how it was done, and why did it happen kind of way.
And it's specifically in this moment where we start telling the story in a flashback that we know that we're eventually going to get to a point where she's alive, the kid's alive, and like, things didn't, like, we're not on the edge of our seat thinking things are going to spiral out of control and everyone's going to die horribly and it's actually a horror movie in disguise. No, it's still a detective movie with a kind of like a horror monster premise on the back of it. Like the horror movie already happened in this movie and now we're telling it through a flashback so you know where it ends up.
So you can tell Andre is already a scientist. We've already established that. And he's really dedicated to his work. So he gets really excited one day, and he takes her down to the laboratory. He's like, "You got to watch this." And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "See this plate?" She's like, "Yeah, we got it for our anniversary from whoever." And you flip it over. You flip it over, and it says "Made in Japan" or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they stick it inside the glass case, if you will. Shut the door. He's like, "Put these on." They always put those little X-ray goggles on. Just
I
eye
like
protection.
the design of it.
I do too.
Some Gucci slades now.
So he does pushes the buttons, and does it always makes that same scene, the same lights up, and it goes over, and he's like, slide that wall back. So they slide the wall, and which I don't understand because the rest of the movie they don't have to move that wall back and forth.
Yeah, it's just that first time.
So they go over there, and she's like, "You did it. You actually transferred it over." And he gets out. He's like, "Yeah, just like this." She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "You did it." And he flips it over, and the words are backwards,
mirrored, basically.
Right. And I thought, and he's like, and that just drove him crazy, man. He was just like, he just went straight back into his work, and she's just like, "Well, I guess
gotta figure this out. Gotta make it work right."
Yeah, and I don't even think he talks to her. He just starts down.
He
starts drawing, and then she goes like upstairs, and then I think like 3 days pass.
Yeah, and then. And she comes back down there. And, he's getting all into it again, and he's like erasing stuff on the blackboard, putting stuff down, and then this is poor thing. But what was the cat's name?
Oh, the cat. Oh, that wasn't the from the other movie. I believe we did. I can't remember the cat's name.
I'm gonna say. Man,
I can't remember the cat's name either.
Charisse or
it had like a person name. You know what I mean? It was like a pet name. It was
I can't believe I didn't write that down.
Charisse,
the most important character of the film that we didn't write down.
Man, I can't think of his name.
Who casted the cat?
So anyway,
the main character.
So he takes it and he puts it in the machine, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, well, but first he does the newspaper, right?
Yeah.
He does the newspaper. The newspaper transfers over, and he's like, "It's all here."
Yeah,
it's all here. And the cat walks by. He's feeding it milk, and he's like, "Huh? Let's
do this."
see." Right. So he puts the cat in there, shuts the door, and he does his thing, and he runs over to the other side. Nothing's there, and then you hear the meow, meow. It's like just particles in space, and I'm like, how are you going to explain this one? You know what I mean?
And your reaction, he just never says it.
Right. And she's like, the wife's like, we don't know where he is. He's ran off or whatever. Nobody can find the cat. He never says anything, right? So he...
I wouldn't know that either if I actually killed the cat.
Right.
Must have ran off. I don't know.
So PETA probably wasn't happy about that one. So he starts thinking along, and then he ends up getting this guinea pig. And he tells the wife, says, but first they go out to the ballet, don't they? They go out to the ballet.
They return the night with, I believe, champagne.
Yeah,
and
because
ice.
he gets super excited because he's stumbled upon it, or almost stumbled upon it. Because
he's on the
even
verge
though
of a
they go
breakthrough.
out, he's still.
Remember, he's like
in
taking
his
notes at the
work.
balcony,
at
and
the
she's
ballet,
like,
and she just looks at him.
She's like,
she's
nope.
super excited. She's like, "Didn't you see that, honey?" Oh,
You need to be in the moment,
he's just
honey.
like-
You are a
he's just like-
distracted scientist. That cliche.
And then
he's
if you
like,
watch-
"Yeah, that's nice." Put it
If
in the
you
fridge.
watch, he leans back, puts his arm around the people behind him, are like, I can't see now.
Weirdo.
Yeah.
This guy.
So they get back home, and he takes her down there, and he puts the champagne in the thing, and then they move it over, and it's still cold. They have it. She's like, you did it. We're going to be famous with all the newspapers and all that.
And then he does a demonstration with, I believe, was it a hamster?
It's a guinea pig.
Yeah, it was
Guinea
guinea
pig.
pig.
But
Tomato, tomato.
she's like, oh, you're not going to do that, are you? And he's like, well... He's like, I think I've got to figure it out. Or no, he doesn't even tell her yet. He's like, yeah, he puts it on there. And he's like, just trust me, I got it. It sends it over there, and it comes out. She's like, it came out fine. He's like, yeah. He's like, he's like, it went a lot better than my first time with it live animal.
Yeah.
She's like, what are you talking about? He's like, the cat. She's like, what? She's like, where is he? He's like, oh, just cat atoms floating around or whatever. I think that's exactly what he says. And so,
cat happens. Happens to the boss. Happens to the best.
he's like, okay. She's like, well, I'm gonna. This is my thing. He's like, well, he's not out of the clearing yet. He's got to survive for like 30 days. See any side effects or
He's
anything.
like, and I'll have you be in charge of looking after him. And then she's like, oh, okay. And now they're back to being happy, and everything's all hunky dory.
Guys, a brief interruption for breaking news. I just looked it up in the Fly in 1958 movie. The cat's name is Dandelo.
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 Yeah. Again, another Frenchy name.
Yes, everything's French in the Fly.
And we love our French listeners.
We love our French cats.
So I like French fries.
French guys are doing all right. We approve you. I know you need our approval.
So now he's really
The whole world
excited,
does.
and the next day they're gonna have the. Remember, after the 30 days or something, he's sitting outside. And he's like leaned back, and she's like feeding the thing, and she goes outside and says something. She's like, "Well, tomorrow's the big day. We're gonna have everybody come, and you're gonna be famous." And he's just sitting there thinking, I don't really know what he's thinking.
He's just miserable because he solved it already. So he needs the next conquest immediately. Because in his mind, he's already solved this and got it done. He needs to figure out something else now, or make sure that he's totally right.
So I don't think it ever really explains what happens next, because the next morning she gets up, she's like, and she goes downstairs to see him, and the door's locked.
Yeah. And
to the laboratory, and there's a paper slid underneath.
And I believe it's before. Nothing gets sparked until the maid is like, "Oh, I haven't seen him all day, all morning.
He left. He had that.
He hasn't eaten his breakfast. I even added his favorite, pastry or whatever. And then so that kind of rose some red flags for her. So then that's when she went downstairs. She was knocking on the door. He wasn't answering. So then she saw the note on the floor. To which
it slides.
It gets slid under the floor.
Like he's been waiting by the door for the entire time. She's like, okay, when she finally comes, she's gonna knock eventually. I know it. Surely it takes all night for her to come down.
And he says, "Look, I can't really explain right now." He's like, "I've had an accident." He's like, "But I need you to give me some milk, at least with rum." And he's like, "Don't ask any questions." He's like, "I need you to go get it." He's like, "And when you come, I want you," or he's like, "Knock once if you understand or whatever."
Yeah, knock once if you understand, and you must obey all my
words. You can't look at me. I've had an accident. I'm okay for now. You can't look at me. So she goes upstairs. She gets all the stuff. The maid's like, "What's going on?" She's spilling the stuff everywhere, and so she goes back down. She knocks on the door, and she comes in, and she walks in, and he's got this black, I don't know, cloth or towel. It looks like a wrestler or boxer after they fought.
Yeah,
it's over the top of their head, and he's got one hand in a pocket, and he's
wearing a long trench coat, got a long pocket. Yeah.
He's pointing over to the desk, so she sets it down, and he goes, he types, go to the other, hands her no, go to the other room. So she goes to the other room, and you see him lean down, and he lifts his hood over his food, and you hear
slurp, slurp, slurp.
Yeah,
it's great.
You're like, what's going on? And so then she's like, whatever happened, I'll understand.
Yeah.
You know, mistakes were made. Whatever. Are you hurt? You know, and he's like, no. He's gonna knock it twice to no.
Yes or
you
no.
know, yeah.
And was this the time that she sees the hand?
I think so. I don't know if she comes back a second time, maybe the next day or something.
I think it was the second time. You're right.
Yeah, he cites another note on the door, and I think that's where he says, "Don't look at me" or whatever.
Yeah, it's a lot shorter note. It was just like, don't look at me and stuff, something like that.
So she comes in and basically she brings him another breakfast or something. Remember when he goes to eat the steak?
That's right. Yeah, he's just trying to tear it apart.
And he accidentally pulls his hand out. And she sees it. And she's and she faints.
Yep.
And he goes and he picks her. Does she faint when she sees the hand?
No, it's faints when she sees the head.
The head.
It's the
But you
hand
don't
stuff
see it,
just screams and runs to the other side of the room in pure terror, and then he just jams it back in his pocket.
Yeah, and shuts the door on her.
Yeah.
So. Basically, you're still going through the same thing, and you don't know what's going on at this point. Except you know he's got a deformed hand that looks like oven mitt on it, basically. But it's,
and then it's shortly after they see the hand that he basically lays out like the only way I could possibly recover. And this we kind of skipped over how he got into this predicament, but he claims that he got into the teleporter to teleport himself as the final test of his machine, and inadvertently let a fly in as well, and then got crossed with a fly, and that's how his hand got mutated.
Right.
And so
he's like, that's why we need the fly with the white head and the thing. He's like, you got to have the fly.
Is to capture that fly alive.
Right. So they are going through. They're taping windows down. They're pulling curtains. You know, and the boy's like, I saw it, mommy. You know. Yeah. So I mean, they're looking at trash cans. They're looking everywhere. Well, they see it and they go to catch it. He's like, I got to have it like by tomorrow or whatever. You know, my mind's starting to go and all that. But I don't know if he tells her that before she sees his face.
After. I don't know if it's after. No, it's not after he sees his face. It's
Before?
So the night he tells her that after she sees the hand, he tells her, "You got to get the fly for me that next day."
Yeah,
you know, and it has to be done today. It has to be done, and then
because she was saying like, "Oh, it'll take a little bit of time to find the fly, but we'll find it." Yeah. And he's like, "I don't have time."
And they have that whole day where the maid who is completely indignant and completely dismissive of why should I capture a fly the whole day, and the son also fails to capture the fly. So the wife, having failed, goes downstairs to tell the husband that she can't do it. He then tells her that it's too late for me then. If you can't find the fly, I need to be killed. I need to be set down because I'm losing my mind and I can no longer think straight, and it's not. I just can't survive like this if you can do this at all.
Yeah, you can tell by his writing is slowly becoming less coherent.
Yeah, and he has to actually grab back his fly hand because it is trying to overwhelm him. The cross mind.
That's the thing I didn't really understand.
That is definitely a little bit of old movie kind of cliche stuff of just like.
So she's like, "No, I'll love you. I'll be like you. Whatever. Just I want you to
go
trust
back.
me."
Well, then his wife insists that he go back in the machine, and if it goes backwards through it, then he'll be all right. And she knows it. And she's basically just pleading with him like, it's the last shot. And I think in the back of his mind, he knows it's not going to work at all. But he goes through it anyways just to kind of give her a little bit of that piece of closure. And he goes through the machine, he comes out, and then, you know, and the wife is ecstatic as she thinks like, oh, hopefully he's finally been cured and everything's fine. And then she goes on and takes off the cowl, and this is the legendary scene itself where she sees this massive fly head on top of the doctor.
You know, it kind of reminds me of like a mascot for like a basketball team, like the Charlotte Hornets. But then you see the fly look at her, and it's got like the 8 eyes. You know,
his POV of that whole like hexagonal eye-shaped thing of her screaming at him like 1,000 times, like 1,000 faces of her.
It's very cool, and very well done shot.
Excellent image. You know, that's definitely like one of the things we're just like, we need this whole movie just for this scene.
Right. And so then she passes out, and he picks her up, and you know, he takes her over there and lays her down or whatever.
Yeah.
So
and then he proceeds to kind of like he kind of like waits there a few moments for her to regain consciousness.
You know, you see him like leaning in, almost trying to kiss her, and he's like, nah. And then his hand, he's like, no. Nah.
He's like, nah, probably shouldn't with the fly stuff. I get that I want to. It seems like the right thing to do, but no.
Right. And so then, you know, he puts the hood back on, don't he?
Yeah, he puts the cowl back on his head, and then he, you know, puts his hand back in his pocket, and then he proceeds to wait for her to regain consciousness. At which point he begins like doing the kind of the yes or no, basically like, you have to kill me, and then begins writing on the chalkboard, I love you, but this has to happen. There's no other cure.
Well, he says no. He says, I need the fly. Remember, he's like, I need the fly. Mm-hmm. She's like, can't you reverse? He's like, I need the fly, and I need it soon.
Yeah.
So this is where she goes to full fly panic mode. You know, they can't find the fly, and And so they see it, and it starts going towards the window, and there's a crack in the window. Remember? She's like, I'm going to the outside to get it. And so she goes outside, and she's chasing. She misses, and it escapes, and so she's chasing it throughout the neighborhood. I don't want to say neighborhood, their yard.
Yeah.
And it basically flies away. And so she goes back down to telling the news that, look, we had it, but
We lost it.
we lost it.
Yeah.
She's like, but we'll find it tomorrow. And he's like, no. He's like, you
It's
just
too late for me. It's just
got to
gone.
kill me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's clear that the fly part of him is even fighting him on this to try and keep him alive because he, the fly is just doing basic fly stuff like I want to live.
So,
You
And
know?
then constantly throughout the movie, there's always the question of like, how long do flies live? Like, how long do flies have?
like a month or so.
Yeah.
The idea of how long does that human fly hybrid have to live, where this fly man has has to kill himself.
That's funny. As like grotesque as like a fly on a human body is, like the opposite feels more terrifying.
well, they
Like,
say how long does a fly live? They said 30 days, if you
Yeah.
remember.
like,
I think Vincent
to
Price
imagine a
states that.
human head on a
Yeah.
fly body is just
Yeah.
more terrifying.
Right,
I think
so-
with a human
But
hand.
anyways, we're approaching the end of this flashback portion of the story,
Yeah.
where now he's got the point where I need to go someplace where you can actually effectively kill me and make sure that there's no evidence of my body or something like that to make sure
My work and all that.
that his work is
Well,
gone.
he goes and starts destroying all of his equipment stuff.
destroys
He
his
doesn't
entire
want
lab.
anybody to.
He burns his paperwork in a trash can. He
erases
destroys
all
evidence
his notes
because he
on the
doesn't want anyone to
blackboard.
make the same mistake
Yeah.
he made of becoming a fly man hybrid by accident. Which I think you could still avoid if you were a decent scientist. Not to be judging the film or anything. But then he destroys the entire lab. He destroys all his recorded information about how he got the teleporter working, and then he pleads with his wife to help him end his life. And they both go to the factory that his brother owns, the Vincent Price character owns.
Andre, yeah.
Andre, yes. And they proceed to.
Or is he Francois?
I think he's Andre.
He's French. And
No, Andre is the brother.
French.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Andre's the brother. And anyways, they proceed to go to that factory, and the scientist proceeds to show his wife, like, okay, this is how you operate the machine. I know the basis of it. And here you got to hit the press and lay down. And then he goes down and lays himself on the press before about to get smashed.
And it's just his head and his one arm, ain't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the one arm big sticks in there. But the moment he hits the moment that she hits the button the first time to lower the press on him, she actually has like last second thoughts and tries to save him. And then the fly hand actually grabs her and tries to kill her too, or to try and save
Drag
his
her
own
in.
life and drag her in by accident. And so they frantically fight each other off, and actually ends up getting the fly man's head stuck inside the press and kills him. But then lifts. And
She goes over there and puts the arm up the
and
fly
then she
arm.
realized, like, okay, I've already gone through this. His head's done. So then she picks up his arm and then puts it on the back of the press and hits the button again for the second time and proceeds to destroy the arm and the head, thus destroying the evidence that he was a fly man. Because back in the day they don't have the first thing they was like, sure seems like a giant fly head got crushed in this press. And not a
Well,
human
yeah,
head.
but if it got smashed into smithereens, there would be no DNA and all that. You know what
well,
I
there'd
mean?
still be
You would-
like, why is there a huge amount of chitin in there?
I know, right?
right.
Man, for a man with red blood vessels, he sure had a giant head full of white blood. Whatever, like
So
flies
now,
bleed.
now the flashback's over, and Vincent Price is like, okay. She's like, well, you will, because she called the authorities over there too, because she said, I'm
Yes.
only going to tell this once.
Exactly. At a certain point in the flashback, they got the inspector in there too
Right.
to get the whole story, and it's clear that they are just kind of like dumbfounded by this information because, like, it does sound somewhat plausible, but still, it is the most unbelievable story in the world that a
Right.
man turned himself into a fly
Yeah.
and committed suicide.
They're pretty much like no one's gonna believe it.
Not a story you hear
Yeah.
every day.
So the
That's when
inspector's
they
like,
decide
look,
to-
he's like, she's gonna have to be admitted. He's like,
There's no other way.
There's no other
Yeah.
way. She's like, nobody's gonna believe this story. And Vince Price is like, is there anything I can do? He's like, bring me the fly.
Yeah.
So now Vincent Price is torn. What's his name? Is it?
I'd look it up again and give me one quick moment.
I want to say his name's Francois, I think, or something like that. But anyway,
yeah,
so
it is Francois.
this is the probably one of the funniest, saddest moments of the film.
Yeah.
is he's out there looking in the trash cans and all that for this fly, and he goes and he sits on this park bench or the bench in their yard, and you hear, "Help me, Yeah, you're like, what in the world? Yeah, but he can't hear it, obviously. Well, if you look,
because he's just looking perplexed at it. He doesn't seem to register that he's here to help me.
And you look over and you see a fly with the white head and arms stuck in a spider web and a spider there. And you just hear, help me, help me. Well, you don't really understand what's going on, but you see the guy's face on the fly in the net, and you're like, oh my God, no. So not only is he a fly, now he's going to get ate by a spider. So Vincent Price sees the ambulance and stuff roll up. The guys are putting in the gurney or whatever, just strap her down. And they take it back upstairs, and the kid says, "Is mommy going to the hospital?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, if only I could find that fly or whatever he says. He's like, "Oh, I saw that fly." And he's like, "You did? Where at?" He's like, "Oh, it's called a spider web down there." Like, what? He's like, "Professor, come with me." He's like, "The fly." He's like,
the inspector,
come on. Inspector, yeah. And he's like, "Come with me." He's like, "It's a fly." So they go running out there, and this is where they see. And they look down, and that spider's coming down on the guy, and the guy's like, "Help me!" And they're both looking at unbelievable. And he's like, "Help me, help me!" Well, the spider actually starts eating the guy, and he just takes up the inspector takes up this big rock, and he just smashes them both. And you're like, and Vincent Price is like, so "You saw it too?" He's like, "I saw it too." And he's like, "That will haunt me the rest of it." He's like, "So you're as much as Helene was a murderer." You're a murderer too. She murdered a fly man. You murdered a man fly or whatever. You know what I mean?
What a technicality right there.
And I was like, he's like, yeah. He's like, well, yeah. He's like, nobody's gonna believe us. It was just an accident. He's like, yeah, I set the press. It's just basically they're covering for each other.
Immediately concoct a story of plausibility for her to not be the murderer.
Exactly. They basically ruled it a suicide.
Basically, right.
Yeah. And then it's clear that Francois and Patricia then kind of like have her and his nephew. Basically, they become a new nuclear family. As
it's heavily implied.
Yeah, Francois kind of steps into the paternal role of the father figure, and not necessarily a lover, but definitely a supporter of the family.
Right. I don't think I don't know if you can make that conclusion that they become an item. Yeah, definitely
it's
a father figure.
Implied, but it never says.
Well, what does she say? He's like, well, we're going to go to the movies or something, and she says something at the end. I can't remember what it is. Well, I'll see you gentlemen out or something like that.
Yeah,
it's not. I mean, to me, I didn't get the effect that they were.
It's not necessarily.
It's open ended.
It's not.
Yeah, it's very open ended.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a romantic kind of simulation. It's like, oh, my brother died, so if you're available, that's kind of messed up.
But then again, maybe once we review The Fly 2, maybe some of that comes about, because I know the child in this movie becomes the fly. The fly in the second one, he actually transforms into the fly too.
Junior Fly, if you will.
I watched a trailer or something, so it said the son of the guy that.
Yeah, because at the end of the movie, he's like, "I want to explore and
I want to be
just like my
dad.
father. I want to be just like my father." And then, you can see
sort
of the hesitation from his mother.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the some facts for this. This is the biggest box office of director Kurt Newman's career, but unfortunately, he never knew. He died a month after the premiere, and only a week before it went into general release. So he didn't get to see the.
It's a sad deal there,
right?
Yeah.
Part of the laboratory set was Irmirak, the computer from Fox's production desk set from 1957. Although many people swear they have seen this film in black and white, and I'm having a Mandela effect that Terence forgets this in a couple more episodes, they never have. This is sometimes referred to as the Mandela effect, which is simply a false memory. It is extremely common, though. The Fly was only ever filmed and shown in color. However, the sequels, The Return of the Fly in 1959 and The Curse of the Fly in 1965, are in black and white. This is likely where the confusion comes from, or they may not have watched it on a black and white television, which were common throughout the 80s. I had a black and white TV, so everything was in black and white, you know what I mean? So that may be where people get confused.
That explains a lot. But yeah, you're right. It's like only filmed in color, and like that's how it's meant to be shown.
Right. Yeah. Michael Rennie was offered the title role, but declined it because his head would be covered through most of the picture. Uncredited producer Robert L. Lippert was able to make additional money from the success of this film. His own company, Regal Films, produced Space Master X7 from 1958, which 20th Century Fox used as the co-feature for this film. So, smart man. Charles Herbert, who plays Delambre's son Philip, was one of the busier child actors of the late 50s and 60s. He also had prominent roles up opposite Cary Grant and Sophia Loren in Houseboat in 1958. Co-starred with Doris Day and David Niven in Please Don't Eat the Daisies in 1960. And interacted with Witches, Goblins, and Ghouls in William Castle's 13 Ghosts from 1960. So this guy, he got to star with the best of the best.
He stuck around in the whole industry for quite a while. Pretty much like in the entirety of his life, he's just like from a kid to an adult. He was just always doing a good film.
Andre wears the same clothes in nearly every scene of this film, with the exception of the night he goes to the ballet. Betty Lou Gerson, who played the nurse, was also the voice of Cruella de Vil in Disney's 101 Dalmatians in 1961, as well as the narrator of Walt Disney's Cinderella in 1950.
I sometimes get taken aback by how old some of those movies are. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, wow, I watched those movies as a kid. Oh, they're way older
Everything
than me.
feels relative. Hey, do you remember 20 years ago? Oh, you mean the 80s? No, 2000. What? No, it's not okay.
This is an interesting...
I'm not okay.
This is an interesting point. In the first scene where the night watchman walks to the factory, he stops for a moment in front of a generator, and the camera zooms in on him slightly. The generator is marked with the letters O.C. 230-115V400 AMP SP10R, with a red handle covering the space between the O and the R in the phrase. The typeface of the lettering used and the red handle placed where it is makes it look like the word spider is printed on the generation that powered the press. So ultimately you see the spider death.
Spider killing the...
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, it's like poetry. It rhymes.
So the spider killed the manfly and the spider killed
the fly man.
Fly Man. Right. I thought that was interesting. First produced screenplay for writer James Clavell. The portrait hanging on Francois's office wall is Girls with Braids by Magdalena in 1918. Sorry if I butchered that
We are
name.
excellent linguists. You know, we know how words are pronounced. The way we say it is the canonical way for the world to know. Everyone else says it, they got it wrong.
For those of you that have listened to our show for a long time, you know we call it the Terence effect, where we don't pronounce names the right way, and that's what part makes our podcast so special.
Worldwide canon. We have to make it
One of a kind.
We Terrenced it. That's what
We
we call
speak
it.
the truth to the world.
You've had your Mandela effect. We have the Terence effect. David Hedison suggested that his character wear progressive makeup effects that showed him in a mixed part human, part fly state when his face is finally revealed, instead of just a fully formed fly mask as depicted in the film. The producers declined due to the cost and time required to achieve the mixed human fly look, as well as being too harsh or grotesque for audiences at that time. This concept was later embraced fully in 1986 from which did the lead scientist slowly mutated, but I don't understand, because when they did the Wolfman, they could have done something like a progression like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
Well, either way, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it would have been a very different film, but I also would have liked to see it either way. But I'm happy with the direction they went. I think that's a fine way of doing it.
I think of all of horror, I never really took body horror well.
Yeah, exactly. You really changed the film a lot, where it's just like, this is still more of a detective whodunit film and trying to uncover the story versus actual horror monster kind of monster of the week kind of show. And instead, it's an excellent blend of those things by still being approachable for a non-horror friendly audience, which I really appreciate.
David Hedison and Vincent Price both have another connection to Jeff Goldblum. Price appeared in The Ten Commandments, which I don't even remember him being in there, while Goldblum voiced Aaron in The Prince of Egypt. Hedison appeared in, which I covered with Natalie Knight from Wells, who did our podcast art cover.
Cool.
Hedison appeared in The Lost World, while Goldblum appeared 2 times for films of his own, Jurassic Park and The Lost World Jurassic Park. Those films also featured Richard Attenborough. If you listen to our previous episode, Jurassic Park, you will understand this, whose daughter-in-law, Jane Seymour, which I didn't know that either, appeared with Hedison in Live and Let Die, so I thought that was really cool. The most famous scene of this movie is the Help Me, Help Me scene. It was not repeated in the reboot.
What a shame.
I know, right?
It is really one of the most
That would have been the other part of
It
body
is-
horror of seeing the fly that turns into a man. That's
It is really one of the most iconic scenes of this movie, though.
yeah, definitely, I would agree.
In the scene where the fly with the Andre Delambre's head and arm is caught in the spider's web, a small animatronic figure with a moving head and arm was used in the spider web as a reference for actors Vincent Price and Herbert Marshall. Price later remembered that filming the scene required multiple takes because each time he and Marshall looked at the animatronic figure with its human head and insect body, they would burst out laughing.
I feel like that's one of two reactions. Either you're absolutely horrified or you're just like, this is ridiculous. What are we doing? We make movies.
We're doing it.
Patricia Owens had a real fear of insects.
Oh.
Director Kurt Newman used this by not allowing her to see the makeup until the unmasking scene. So that's probably a genuine reaction.
That's fantastic.
I love
that.
it.
Love it.
Let's see here. Jane Clavel's first script was faithful to George Langland's original story, but Fox executives demanded a happier ending. In the short story, Helene commits suicide after having told her brother-in-law the whole story. Oof. Yeah, that's steep.
Yeah, a little rough.
That is actually David.
Right.
That is actually David Hedison, not a stuntman, inside the Fly makeup. And I say makeup, but it was more of like I would say a mask. When you like a.
Yeah, as a full covering, I'm sure he kind of put it on, but I don't know. I wouldn't imagine them layering on, prosthetics.
All of that, yeah.
Very much. That sounds a lot more expensive and not impossible, but unlikely for that era. So yeah, I would go more mask-light.
In the short story, when Helene convinces Andre to go back to the teleporter without the Fly, not only does it fail to return him to human form, it also infuses into his body some of the atoms from their pet cat that never reintegrated. At that point, he knows that it's pointless to keep looking for the Fly.
South Park has Man Bear Pig. The Fly has Fly Cat Man.
Fly Cat.
And last but not least, the teleportation that causes Andre and the Fly to switch atoms is never seen on screen. So, Terrence, give us your thoughts on this movie.
I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would because, like I said earlier, I came into this thinking it was going to be like very body horror-y, like
the Goldblum,
Jeff Goldblum one,
David Cronenberg version, yeah, for sure.
But it wasn't the whole Cronenberging. So I enjoyed it because it acted more like a detective story. I'm a very huge fan of detective story stuff, and so it had a lot of those elements in it. Like kind of has been explaining. And so I'd say if you're a fan of, sort of detective-like movies, this is a pretty good movie. If you're a fan of horror, I still think it's something to watch, particularly if you have seen it, just to see how differently it was done and where, obviously the remake got a lot of its inspiration from.
Clearly, yeah.
So I'd say it's a good watch. There wasn't anything in particular that I didn't like, except what I mentioned earlier, how she was. I thought that would come into more play, but thinking about it, I think it's just her sort of being jumbled from the whole experience that she didn't remember, so that she had to hit the button twice. But I guess it's never really mentioned again. And then also that also is kind of like shaky as far as continuity of like the detective's effectiveness, because he's a very effective detective, but then there's little things like that are missed. But no, overall, I liked it. Thumbs up.
Yeah, I largely want to echo what Terrence said. Where originally it's just like having like as a younger self, I originally watched the David Cronenberg film and was both delighted and disgusted by the body horror of Jeff Goldblum slowly turning into a fly, and it's a great film in its own right, but it's still you have to be in the mood for that kind of body horror and disfigurement or something like that to be able to kind of take that mentally from my perspective and my personal taste. But this movie definitely had a lot more of a subdued attitude, where it's let's not show everything at once, because both it would cost a lot of money to show that, and also it does help build the suspense and attitude of it is horrifying to see this monster, but also it is still human under there, and kind of relieves that tension that can be overwhelming in the 1986 film. So this film I think is really great and really shows just how different film can be made from two different perspectives. Because if you look back at the David Cronenberg, you have that extreme body horror that really kind of permeates in your mind years after existence. You can tell I'm scarred by it. versus the 1956 film, where a lot more is a lot more of a detective whodunit kind of story in a way that is that is also kind of horrifying in its own particular way, but not nearly as disgusting to watch or something like that, or as visceral and shocking. So overall, I really appreciated that. I recommend any films anybody. So I think it's a great watch if you have the time and have the way about doing it. So I approve of it.
Right. I liked it. I like Vincent Price anyway. I think he was an outstanding actor. The only thing that I was really I don't want to say confused about, but the thing that I didn't understand is, just because you're friends with an inspector, how does that stop a full-blown investigation? You know what I mean? It's there was no other police present that you saw, maybe at the death scene, but I mean, you would think it would be more of a
a bigger deal.
You admitted to a murder. You're coming downtown with us instead of, oh well, I thought she just needed rest.
I definitely didn't understand.
The owner of a major factory who knows about
yeah.
the scientist and all kind of stuff who creates major jobs, and then like his brother, he gets murdered in the factory of a guy who owns a factory. It's just like it's a really high profile story that like you can't imagine the world would ignore and that city would ignore. I mean, like we got to get on this immediately and actually like brute force it and get it done. But instead, it's very truncated and like let's give her a few days to kind of like relax and figure out what's going on and hopefully come down from whatever kind of like hysterics she's in, where she's saying she murdered her husband or something like that,
which is unheard of.
It's like, I think it may possibly speak to a little bit of maybe the sexism of the time of believing like, oh, she's just being hysterical. She couldn't have killed him. She must be just lost her mind and she needs to calm down. You know how women are, that kind of idea of that kind of 50s movie aesthetic. And so it's weird. Like there's no adequately good justification for why they didn't take immediate action of like arresting her if she is admitting to murder. But at the same time, though, it is not completely unbelievable that because of her social standing and connections and the fact that everyone was so taken aback by the idea that she could murder him that they held off on taking action. I mean,
But like I said, it's definitely a good movie to watch if you've never seen it. I really enjoyed it. I think these guys enjoyed it. So with that being said, I think this episode's coming to a close, and that's a wrap. And Terrence or Kyle or both, take it away.
And cut. Wow, we were way off.
Always in sync. Always in sync.